It's really important to note that the e-commerce businesses have to make an effort as well, though, right? Like you can't just go, oh, online's better, so I'll move everything online and not worry about what I'm doing. It means going online and looking at all the different aspects in which you can reduce your impact as a company as well. So whether that's who you're hosting with, the servers that they're based on, the energy that it uses, how you're delivering your products, how you're storing your products, and of course, the products that you create as well.
Hello and welcome to the eCom Ops podcast. We believe that there is more than enough content focused on e-commerce marketing and not enough content celebrating the real heroes of e-commerce, those running the operation. Each week, we find and interview an e-commerce operations expert to share the secrets behind how some of this industry's most exciting businesses are run. I'm your host, Norbert Strappler, the CEO of SyncSpider.
Hello and welcome to another eCom Ops podcast. Today I am proud to talk with Thomas and Hugo from Greenr. And this is really a great project that I really like. But let's let them tell us a bit more about the project. Guys, welcome to the show.
Hi, Norbert. Thank you for having us.
Great to have you guys. So who want to start? Tell me a bit more about Greenr.
I can definitely give it a shot. So greenr.co.uk is a platform that's being built to make sustainable living just living. We're all aware of how complicated it is to shop sustainably, whether we don't know what the terms mean or why a product is more sustainable, or whether we just don't know where to find the products themselves. So for us, it was looking at that fragmented sector and working out what we can do to make it easier, more accessible, and more fun to shop sustainably in the mainstream. So Greenr is a multi-vendor marketplace which brings ethical, vetted brands which are selling better impact products into one place, where we also show the carbon emissions, water waste, and plastic waste that is saved when you buy that product compared to its mainstream counterpart. The big thing for us was just making that whole process super streamlined, so consumers and individuals would be able to know that they can come to the platform, buy these products, and know that they're having a better impact when doing so.
Oh, that's really great. I love this. We worked also with companies in Austria doing something similar called Less Plastic. So it's a really cool approach and really can help us save the environment. Now, how did you guys came into e-commerce and how did you came to the idea of doing such great stuff?
Yeah, I mean, kind of by accident originally. I think we've both worked in the climate sector and sort of governmental and startups, as well as our other co-founder Emma as well, for a number of years, sort of over a decade now. But with my first company, we were dealing with product waste. So what happens at the end of a product's life cycle, basically, and what happens whether it goes to landfill, whether it's reused, recycled, repurposed, any of those things. And one of the things that we realized when we were doing that was that ultimately we need to buy better to begin with, right? It's all very well dealing with the symptoms of this problem, but really we need to tackle the source of the problem. So it made a natural progression for us to go from dealing with consumer products in a sense to then looking at how we can deal with where people are buying, what they're buying, and the impact that that has as well. So for me, it was definitely coming from having a company which was already dealing with consumer product waste and then just wanting to move to the source of that problem as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, nice. Great. And you said Greenr is a marketplace, yeah? And what software do you use to run that marketplace?
Go, Hugo, if you want.
Sorry. So we're built on Shopify. We have a lot of custom code that's going on behind the scenes that does all the marketplace work. So we're really focusing at the moment on Shopify brands, but we can also work with any brand that is working on other platforms as well, like WooCommerce, Magento, etc. But really, we're just focused on making it as easy as possible for our vendors to work with us. As Thomas said earlier, it's about that streamlining everything. So, not just for the consumer, the shopper, but also for the vendors as well. So we've really built out that back-end system behind it over the last couple of months. And we're really excited to take that to launch.
Awesome. That's cool. Did you build your backend your own, or do you use any kind of plugin for the marketplace? I mean, there are a lot of multi-vendor plugins as far as I know, but did you build yours, your own?
We looked at a couple out there, and they tend to look quite promising, but when you sort of really dig into it and look at the specific things that you'd like to do, you tend to run into problems. So really, we've actually built that custom ourselves, which is really exciting.
This is really exciting because I know what kind of work you needed to have to build this up.
Yeah. And what's really exciting about it is that we own that, we can build on that. We can build that out. We can, that's our own offering. That's our own product and IP. So that's exciting and something that, we don't think we've really seen before.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Come in, Norbert, if I can just quickly interject.
Yeah, please don't worry. Go.
Just one of the reasons for using Shopify, but then also sort of bringing custom code into that as well, was that Shopify is very good from a consumer-facing perspective. People understand that they're used to that sort of front end, and then from a sort of vendor or a e-commerce perspective, it's very easy to manipulate and use as well. But for us, because we have impact data and quite a lot of custom content management as well, the reason for sort of manipulating the Shopify code is so that we can push those to the front end as well. So it's taking what is already there on the shelf as a sort of MVP, if you like, and then building upon that to allow us to offer our own unique offering to consumers, but also to vendors, as Hugo says. And that's why we chose to manipulate it rather than just go with something out of the box.
I like that you mentioned Shopify is really a great piece of software. And one of the most important things and facts is it's stable. Yeah. It's fast and it's stable and it's reliable. Exactly. And building something around that, and if you can solve it with that, is for sure a good plan. Yeah. So the idea is actually great. I mean, do you run on Shopify still or Shopify Plus already?
Shopify Advanced, I think, the sort of second tier up. We don't need Shopify Plus right now. And to be honest, the longer term plans for our build, because we'll be bringing in future features into that stack, means that over time we'll actually move away from Shopify. So for us, it makes sense to utilize what we can from Shopify on the Shopify Advanced without having to sort of go up to that next tier of payment. But then, in the background, we can be sort of rebuilding to allow us to scale quicker, but also to be able to bring in some of those future features as well.
Okay, that's fine. Good. You define Greenr as a community. Could you elaborate a bit more on that?
Yeah, I think one of the things that community is such a buzzword right now, right? Everyone wants to talk about their community. But one of the things that's sort of rung true from the work that we've done previously, but also taking into Greenr, is having a sense of the people around you are as much a part of that company and the growth of that company as you are as founders. So from my background working with Greenpeace, which is, the largest independent environmental organization in the world, that is all about bringing people together. They're independent because they're only supported by individuals. And then when I went into my first company, it was dealing with people's, the products that they were finishing with and didn't know what to do with after the end of that. So it was all about people again. And so with Greenr, for us, we've got sort of two groups of our community which are coming together to build this great movement to buy better overall. And that is the people who are making these amazing products, so the vendors who are selling on our platform, and then the people who are buying them. And together, when you bring them together in an actual community, not just the buzzword of a community, you can actually make some really impressive and exciting change. So anything from publicity campaigns to actually doing stuff on the tech and then working with the vendors and helping them grow as well. So for us, it's not just about building a marketplace where you can buy and sell products, but it's about bringing all the people who are involved with that on both sides of that platform together to sort of build resource, to build growth altogether, but also to help each other and to sort of progress the climate movement in a way which is accessible to more people.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Well, there are reports indicating that more than 57% of the UK online shoppers worry that the rise of online shopping is a threat to the environment. What are the opportunities that you can come out of this, and how can Greenr leverage those opportunities?
Yeah, sure. So I'll just jump here. It's an interesting one. And actually, there are quite a few studies that show that online shopping can actually create fewer emissions than brick and mortar. That's for a number of reasons. It's taking cars off the road, and it's making that system a lot more efficient. For example, there's an MIT report that looked at e-commerce versus brick and mortar and found that it could lead to 36% lower emissions. In almost every single case that they looked at, it reduced emissions. So I think especially with circular delivery routes, in this country we have Royal Mail, which is an amazing delivery system that is sort of out there every day, which many of our vendors use, and which is already electrifying their fleet on huge levels. It's making that system so much better. So not to take into account the fact that lots of people want to shop in store. We know from the huge meteoric rise of Amazon, people want to shop online, but we know that lots of people feel guilty about that. In fact, more than a third of people in the UK feel guilty about buying on Amazon and want to buy on better places. So it's really about offering that and actually just showing all the ways that this is actually better. From our electric and green delivery options, and it's really just about giving that in a much more accessible way. So I think in a way that isn't a huge issue.
So you think actually that, or it's proven actually that the e-commerce business is less harmful for the environment than brick and mortar stores?
There's quite a few studies around this actually, which is it's really interesting, because I think there's an element of communicating that to consumers, which is in essence what we're all about. It's about kind of communicating these complex environmental issues and the bigger picture. And actually, when you look at it, there's lots of studies that say otherwise. Actually,
and I think it's really important to note that the e-commerce businesses have to make an effort as well, though, right? Like, you can't just go, oh, online's better, so I'll move everything online and not worry about what I'm doing. It means going online and looking at all the different aspects in which you can reduce your impact as a company as well. So whether that's who you're hosting with, the servers that they're based on, the energy that it uses, how you're delivering your products, how you're storing your products, and of course the products that you create as well. Now, obviously some of those things will cross over into brick and mortar as well. But one of the things, as Hugo says, is that all of the things that are sort of online or that are the availability of e-commerce stores are so much easier to make greener than if they have a brick and mortar store, or if you're relying on people coming into a place to buy from your brick and mortar store. So actually, there's a sense of having to work for that as a company as much as it is going to be easier to do so anyway.
Yeah. Well, I need to agree, man. You just need to imagine when you go to a brick and mortar store, you need to drive there somehow, and you need to find a place to park, or you have maybe some kind of bus or what else, how you come there. But you need to come there, you need to get there. And actually packaging, is the other side, but you always have packaging also in the brick and mortar stores. So it makes total sense that this could be less harmful. But how can e-commerce businesses optimize their waste management? What do you think? I mean, there is a lot of waste with all this kind of additional packaging you need to transport the goods.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really important to note is that when you're buying from a marketplace which stocks the products, so if they have the products themselves and from their different vendors, then it's much easier to get products in one sort of package, right? So then you're reducing the amount of packaging that you might get elsewhere anyway. Obviously, that's not the case for a lot of places. Like for us, we can't start like that because that's a huge infrastructure that we don't have right now. So the way that we can reduce that is working with our vendors to make sure that the packaging they do use is better for the environment than what they would be using otherwise. Now, that can look at anything from biodegradable packaging to returnable packaging to circular packaging. And all of those various different things are becoming more and more mainstreamized. I don't know what the word is, more mainstream, as we sort of see more companies innovating in that space as well. So what's really exciting from our perspective is that, particularly as Hugo mentioned earlier with circular sort of delivery solutions, is that the ability to drop something off and that, you receive that, but then actually you can send that back and have it refilled and use the same packaging. And actually that packaging is never in a sort of consistent state of being reused and repurposed, as well as probably being made out of a better material anyway. So I think that, yes, you need to be conscious of the fact that you're producing more packaging, because you're not just picking something off the store shelf and then like taking it home. You're actually having to wrap it up and send it in delivery. But like I say, there are lots of different options there, which will make that more of an, or less of an impactful part of the shipping process than one would think.
And these are actually additional costs, either for the vendor or for the person buying from the vendor. And we see at the moment the price is increasing a lot because of Corona, the Ukraine crisis, and so on. So prices are increasing across Europe. Are people still willing to invest a bit more to save the environment?
I think one thing that we've noticed in our research is that you're absolutely right. So the sort of like awareness and intent to shop more sustainably or spend more on sustainable products tends to sort of like dip when there are other crises around. So whether that's an economic crisis or an energy crisis or whatever it might be. But it is also always staying within the top three, or at least very high in the intent of consumers. And the reason for that is that we're all very aware of the fact that the climate crisis is getting more and more intense.
Yeah.
And particularly as we start to feel those impacts now in the West as well, it's sort of, you can't turn a blind eye to it anymore. So we're all aware that we need to start doing something and pressuring companies to change as well. But also the other argument there is that it's actually not more expensive in the longer term. So yes, you might have to cash out more on that initial purchase, but again, because it's a refillable product, because it lasts longer and it's better made, it's made with better materials, it's better quality, and it's sort of taking into account not just the environment, but also ethics as well. So fair labor rights and, making sure the supply chain is ethical. All of those things accumulated make that purchase a much more efficient and economically efficient purchase than just buying something because of the price tag in the initial purchase. And what we've seen definitely is that consumers who make that initial purchase and then go on to buy the refills of that product, whatever it may be, or if it's a product which isn't refillable and just lasts a longer time, actually they're not having to spend the same amount of money over that period of time as they would have been otherwise. So it's really important for us as a company to communicate that as well, because the general assumption, as you say, is that, it's more expensive to shop sustainably. But actually what we're seeing now is that it's becoming more efficient to shop sustainably over that period.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think on 2 points, there's one point is that sustainable products price point is coming down as well. We're seeing lots of really affordable brands, especially in the UK now, that are really offering those lower price point solutions for customers, which is very exciting, especially for us. We're really focused on making the movement more accessible to more people. So that's really exciting. And on the other point, again, talking about cheap versus, long lasting products. I think I've had so many conversations with people in the last 2 years where they just say, I've had that experience of buying something from, Amazon, Alibaba, whatever it is, Wish.com. No, I'm not trying to get them all on our backs right now. Just
I know what you want to say.
But I've had so many people say I've had such a disappointing experience. This thing that I bought because it was a bit cheaper, it's just fallen apart. And I've had that as well. Buying certain things which are harder to buy more sustainably. If that's like a keyboard or something like that, they just don't work and they fall apart. And I think there's a huge opportunity there to promote the fact that, look, it's the false economy idea. So spending a little bit more upfront will actually last and be better quality over time.
I really love how you guys explained this, because this really is an eye opener, and you look at things different. And this is what I think people will love and be part of the community to really get this well up. And what I saw is you have already signed up 100 and have 700 prospective businesses to add to the platform. What criteria must companies meet before they are added to your platform?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so we're over 110 brands that have sort of gone through expression of interest and now going through vetting to sort of come onto the platform. To get onto the platform, there's sort of 3 stages. So first, you of course need to sort of express that you want to sell on the platform, and just go through a couple of eligibility checks on that as well, to do with varying things from insurance to sort of like where you're distributing your goods from and those various things. But the sort of main bulk of coming onto the platform with our vetting process is, as you say, through that criteria. And we look at 3 different areas. So we look at the company first. So that looks at the ethics of the company, the sustainability of the company rather than the products itself. And they'll be asked a number of questions based within that section, everything from sort of their fair labour rights all the way to their waste management schemes, and they can provide evidence for that. And then you go on to their products. And their products, we're looking at sort of, again, how they're made and the materials that are used, but also sort of what that product constitutes of, whether it's vegan, biodegradable, compostable, et cetera, and we would require evidence again to prove those points, so that we can sort of back them up and promote them as better and more ethical products as well. And then the third point is actually on that material data. So one of the unique things for Greenr as a platform is that we provide that data on carbon emissions, water waste, and plastic waste. So for us, we ask for the material composition of a product. So if it's a bamboo toothbrush, we ask, the weightage of the bamboo or whatever the bristles are made of, so that we can then run that, compare that against something of a mainstream counterpart. So, a plastic toothbrush from, Colgate or whoever. And that allows us to see whether that product is quantifiably better than the other type. And that's a really good way for us, but also for the people who are going to buy that product to understand why that product is better. So once you've gone through those 3 varying sort of vetting processes, then it's just about providing the evidence for them and then onboarding through the platform. So that's the sort of the bulkiest part, is just going through the vetting. And I think pretty much all vendors and brands that we've worked with so far understand that if we're going to make sustainable mainstream, then we have to do the heavy lifting for the consumer. And that means taking the time to vet a brand properly and efficiently and do our due diligence. Otherwise, we could be called out for, not having done the work. So for us, it's really important that we go through those stages. And that's the sort of, there's a broad set of criteria within that a company could fall into, and a threshold, which of course they have to meet as well.
It's a bunch of work.
Yeah. I mean, that's
really something to do here if you verify all the products. How can you prevent from greenwashing?
That's why we ask for evidence, ultimately.
Yeah. Okay, so you really prove that.
Yeah, we don't want sort of a claim which can't be backed up. So that could be evidence in the form of like a third-party certification, or it could be evidence in that they've done tests, or they can provide an ingredients list or whatever it might be. And essentially that allows us to then sort of check off our own due diligence on that product in a very efficient and sort of swift process, which doesn't rely on us having to go into the company and do a huge audit on that company.
Yeah, we've done a lot of work in defining what those accreditations are on our platform. So if it says it's made from recycled materials, it is 100% recycled. We've seen a lot of green claims made over the last year, really, that are just false. So, there's been huge fashion brands like Boohoo that are being investigated by the Competition and Markets Authority in the UK. Ever since the Green Claims Code was published by the UK authorities in January. So we're already seeing kind of action taken against companies that aren't really meeting that. So one of the things we wanted to do from the beginning was really back all of that up and go above and beyond. And I would just say, I'm not going to name any names, but there are other eco-friendly a few other eco-friendly platforms out there in the UK, and very few of them really do that. And that's one thing that we just look at and think, that really to us is the bare minimum in terms of communicating that to the customer and making it super clear. And I think, we've basically got we've ironclad against greenwashing this.
Mm-hmm. So it's really, you check the products, you really do your due diligence, as you said, and you take care that there's no greenwashing. I really love this approach. I think it's very hard because, of course, you need to be profitable at some time. Yeah. And it makes it harder for you, make it hard for you yourself. It's clear. That's good. But what are your competitive advantages against these big players like Amazon? I believe they also have a checkbox already for show me bio products or green products. Yeah. or maybe they come up with one.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that sort of is our defensibility against that is a platform like that will never be able to do it to the same level as a startup can. And if we've built that into our foundations, we can then scale that up as well.
Mm-hmm.
So the green, I think it's called the climate friendly badge on Amazon. It is just the plainest form of greenwashing because it includes products like, throwaway wet wipes and single use batteries and various products which you just know are not sustainable or better impact, but they've been given that badge because of some check that Amazon have done to claim that is sustainable, and that's not good enough. And inevitably that will be called out eventually. I mean, we've just had the new green claims code by the local authorities here, and I think that we will start to see claims like that being called out and essentially penalized because it is misleading and it's it's a mistruth essentially. So for us, our defensibility is that we've built that into the foundations of what we do. For Amazon to do that on all of their products, they would have to get rid of millions of products off of their platform, which they're not going to do. So if you as a consumer want to make sure that you can shop with trust, you want to go somewhere which is transparent and trustworthy, right? So for us, it's about making sure we put that work in and gone above and beyond on the research compared to anyone else on the market. And I think, of course, I come back again to the fact that we've built internally into the platform data and science-backed data to back up everything we say. So even if a product, someone doesn't understand necessarily the terms that are being used, at a simple glance, they can tell that product has better impact just from its carbon emissions, water waste and plastic waste. And that is a really good way to quantify that for the consumer, for the vendor, but also for us as a platform. And it's something that Amazon isn't about to go and do for every single one of its products on its platform.
Well, would be even a harder job then. Yeah, I fully need to agree.
And I mean, look, it's easier for platforms like Amazon or Etsy or whoever you look at to go and acquire companies which are doing a good job in a sector that they feel like is a challenger to them, rather than trying to do it themselves. And I think that particularly in our case, because we're quite blunt about the fact that we're challenging sort of those big boy polluters, we're coming out of that box and saying we're standing up against companies like that, we're your home for sustainable shopping. It gives a sense of sort of challenger-esque, but also sort of trustworthiness within the brand itself as well. So then for big companies like Amazon, if they ever wanted to challenge that, they would just need to buy someone. And we're in a position where if they wanted to buy us, we can use that to our advantage. We can leverage that to make our movement even more successful, right? So we're in a position where we're entering a sector which is fragmented, but if you can bring it together, which is our aim and our goal, then actually you put yourself in a very strong position to become the next big sustainable marketplace, which is definitely needed because there's a big hole in the market for one of our
It's absolutely. Yeah. Now you are a UK-based business and sell to UK customers. How soon do you think you'll go global?
We'll definitely come to the EU first. That would be sort of within 18 to 24 months. So we're just closing an investment round now, launching our platform in the UK in autumn, and then we'll sort of spend a year growing and scaling and bringing on brands from the UK to sort of distribute and sell on our platform. And that will allow us to build out other features on the platform as well, and also make sure that we've refined the actual process of selling and buying on the platform. And then what that means is we can then go and raise again, and that will be to scale and to expand. So at that point, we'll come to the EU, and that will start as a sort of like rollout across different areas and regions at a time, each time sort of coming to a new area. And the thing for us is that the reason that we decided to allow only sort of brands that distribute from the UK to sell to UK customers on our platform is that it allows us to make it as sustainable as possible in terms of distribution, since we don't have the fulfillment capability like Amazon does, for example. Yeah. And until we have that capability, we can't offer that same sort of distribution network unless it's localized. So for when we expand to the EU, we will be obviously reviewing and making sure that we can bring the same feasibility and accessibility to the consumers in the EU as much as we can in the UK. And that will be a rollout situation. Obviously, once we've done the EU, then there will world's our oyster, and if that goes well, then we'd look to sort of expand globally. But for us, we started in the UK. Obviously, the UK and the EU have such similar regulations. Despite the UK leaving the EU, we're still able to sort of learn a lot and take a lot from working with the EU previously. So it allows us to then come into the EU in a much stronger position than if we were to just sort of try and do everything at once.
Got it. Good answer. One question that is important for our audience, because it's the eCom Ops podcast, is always about automation. How much or how important is automation at Greenr?
I mean, I'll let Hugo come in on this, but I think just a quick point is that it's hugely important from the processes of making our jobs easier. If we're trying to do every single thing manually, it takes a lot of time, and it's going to take, we're not going to be able to scale the business. We're just going to be bogged down in the actual processes and operations of the business. So I'd recommend to anyone who's building an e-commerce business or a marketplace to look at what platforms and integrations you can use to make that automation super easy and streamlined, whether that's from email marketing to order processing. But Hugo has more experience with this because he sort of is building out the whole flows for every notification ever.
Yeah, obviously, as a marketer, automation is your friend, and really sets you up for growth, and takes out some of that manual work. We're doing a crowdfunder right now, and every new investor and every new kind of register of interest and all that kind of stuff, it's great having all of that automated. But obviously, we talked a lot about vetting and verifying our brands, and I think that is sort of semi-automated right now, but we'd love to automate that further. To some degree, you want it to be a personalized process, and you want to take vendors through that journey and help them on the way, which is, as we talked about community earlier, really something that we're focusing on at the moment, and that's something we can do, as a small agile team, that makes sense. But again, we would love to sort of automate that further, and it gets into really exciting territory where that can go, and also just making our lives easier on some of those manual tasks. But yeah, so I think that is really the key place for us, and where we're looking at kind of innovation in the future.
Cool, thank you, guys. Last question for the day: who has taught you the most about e-commerce in your career?
I think we probably both agree that it's Nathan Lomax. I mean, we speak to a lot of people in the sector just generally because we work with a hell of a lot of people anyway, and there's great people who work with amazing sort of founders and operators like Chloe Thomas, who runs another podcast. She's fantastic, and she just knows a lot about the sector anyway. But Nathan is one of our advisors. He works for a Shopify Plus agency, scaling Shopify brands. But just generally, he's worked in the e-commerce sector for the better half of, a decade, and I think even longer than that now. And I think that experience and advisory that has taught us what is good and the connections that come through that, and talking about automation, the various different sort of platforms that we can integrate into our platform that he already knows about, it makes our lives so much easier than having to work out all those things from scratch. So that's definitely what I would say. I don't know if you go.
Yeah, I was going to say Nathan. I think he's a great guy who connected with a lot of people. But on a wider point, I think it's very easy to get caught up in, I've learned a lot about this, X thing, and we're seeing that with kind of job roles in especially in tech, but also in marketing. I see that a lot, product marketing, brand marketing, growth marketing. At the end of the day, I look all of that and I think, it's marketing, it's all the same thing. And I think when it comes to talking about learning about e-commerce, it's really about learning about human nature. It's about learning about storytelling, understanding your customer. And, I think being in tune with what customers want in 2022, I think that's something that we've really tapped into. And that's sort of that wider thing about learning, which I think is always important to keep badgering on about. It's about learning how we work as humans, and that's something that we're always looking to improve ourselves on.
Awesome.
From our customers.
Learning from the customers, yeah. Thank you very much, guys. It was really, really a pleasure talking to you. Greenr seems to be a perfect fit product and a great project that will save the environment or help to save the environment by choosing the right products, giving it to the right audience. And what I really learned today and changed my thinking a bit as well is that the fact that also local businesses, so that in the head of the people, it seems that they say, okay, the online businesses are more harmful to the environment than local businesses, but actually it's either equal or even the way around. And the future will show that, of course, and there will be statistics and analysis and what else and reports to prove that or not. But thinking about that is something that maybe can change the mind of some people. Of course, local businesses still need to be supported. We need those businesses. We need those jobs. And we want to go somewhere looking at products in real and taking them from there. But e-commerce is actually not bad. It helps us. And it helped us during the last years, and it will still grow. And this is great if there is a new marketplace where we can buy green. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Norbert.
Good luck, guys.
Thank you very much.
And that's it for this episode of the eCom Ops podcast. If you enjoyed listening and would like us to find and interview more e-commerce operations experts, please search for eCom Ops podcast in your favorite podcast listening app, and then subscribe, rate, and review. Until next time.